Hello everyone, welcome to our vlog. Welcome to Agent Lenny vlog. Before we will start to our topic today, I'm inviting you to like this page, Wonderflight Travel Agency, and if you want to book your flight, you can message on that page. We offer to go on tour packages. Hello everyone, welcome to our vlog. For today's video, ito na po ang Cebu Pacific Air travel requirements for domestic flight. Natakal na po natin ang lahat ng Philippine Airlines. Meron yung part 1 at merong part 2. So, after the Cebu Pacific, i-upload ko po yung sa Airasia and then to be followed po yung to go. So, hindi ko lang alam kung ngayon ko din po ma-upload yung to go pero I will try my best. So, wag po pala kayong mag-message sa Wonderflight Travel Agency kung hindi po kayo nag-book doon dahil hindi po nila kayo ma-assist sa mga complete travel requirements. And also in Agent Lenny, ang magme-message lang po doon kung may tanong po kayo about vlog, isi-send po sa inyo ang tamang vlog para po ma-inform kayo ng maayos. Pero hindi din po sila mag-a-assist ng mga question nyo na hindi kayo nagpabook sa Wonderflight Travel Agency. So, kung gusto nyo pong masagot yung tanong nyo, randomly, pipili po ako ng isa dyan sa next vlog. Mag-comment lang po kayo dito sa YouTube. At maswerte kayo kung kayo ang mapili sa next vlog at sasagutin po natin yon. Then kung urgent naman po yan, you can click the join button of Agent Lenny and show your badge. Pakita nyo po na nag-join kayo as a member and then send to Agent Lenny Facebook page para po masagot yung mga tanong nyo. So for travel requirements to Bacolod, ito po yung update nila. For Negros Occidental, except Bacolod City, travel to and from areas classification na sa Alert 3 and above shall be restricted and discouraged. So, kung kayo ay 3 up, hindi po muna kayo pwedeng pumunta sa Negros Occidental since hindi pa po sila open. All guests bound for cities and municipalities within Negros Occidental, except for Bacolod City, are required to present the following travel requirements. So, ito po yung mga requirements nyo. For local stranded individual, ROF and APOR, approved travel coordination permit from ESPAS, and negative RT-PCR or swab test result valid 72 hours from date of test, and must be conducted by a DOH accredited molecular laboratory. A negative antigen test result within 48 hours may be accepted. So, mahigpit sila ngayon. Then, children who are 2 years old and below may have their rapid antigen. So, dun sa mga children na 2 years old, pwede sila ganun. At paalala ko lang din sa mga nagtatanong about child, kung ang isang destination ay hindi po naka-indicate doon ng exemption age ng children, ibig sabihin, same po siya requirements sa adult. Okay? Kasi maraming nagme-message, ano din po ang requirements ng mga bata. So, yon, kung wala namang exemption na or walang sinabi na 2 years old below is exempted, so ibig sabihin, automatic yon, lahat ng papasok sa areang yon or sa provinces na yon ay same requirements sa adult. For authorized person outside the residence or APOR, valid ID, original certificate, true copy of travel order, and pass the symptom screening. Itong mga APOR, mga government officials po ito. Yung may mga travel order na pinadala ng mga government. So, for Bacolod City only, ito naman po yung mga requirements nyo para dun sa mga returning residents, ROF and APOR. Approve ESPAS, negative RT-PCR test result, pwedeng saliva test, galing lang dapat sa Red Cross yung saliva test, and taken within 72 hours before arrival in Bacolod City. A negative antigen test result valid within 48 hours may also be accepted. So, pwede din nila i-accepted. Since nilagay nila yung antigen, you can get also the antigen. And then the backtrack registration, valid personal ID. Okay, panoorin nyo yung video kung meron na tayo niyan. In-update ko po yun kung ano po yung mga valid IDs sa airport. For authorized person outside residence going to Bacolod, valid ID issued by the government agency, original certified copy of travel authority, pass the symptom screening, and fully vaccinated
present your vaccination card. Then for unvaccinated, mag-RT-PCR po kayo or negative saliva coming from Red Cross 72 hours. So, hindi ko na itatackle guys yung upper kasi halos LSI naman yung mga travelers natin at viewers. Okay? Okay ba yun? So, hindi ko na lang po itatakal yung sa upper. Kung gusto nyo po talagang malaman, ilalagay ko din naman yung link nitong requirements na to dyan sa description box. Pa-click nyo na lang para ma-update kayo. Dahil pwede din naman to mag-iba yung mga requirements time to time. It depends on the LGU. So, hindi ko po sinasabing, eto na po yung magiging requirements for the whole month. So, kailangan nyo pa rin pong i-check tong link sa description box. So, pag kayo ay papunta ng Bohol just for fully vaccinated, vaccination card or vaccination certificate and government ID. Kung kayo ay partially vaccinated lang, present your negative RT-PCR swab or saliva 72 hours before departure, then government-issued ID. Then for minors, 11 years old and below, exempted from RT-PCR test requirements provided that they are accompanied by fully vaccinated parents or guardians. Now, let's go to Caticlan via Cebu Pacific, yung mga mamamasyal ng Boracay. So, updated na po ito. For tourists, kailangan nyo pong mag-register dito sa declaration card at least 24 hours before the flight. I-click nyo lang po yan, mag-register kayo. Then, proof of full vaccination, yung vax card nyo. For unvaccinated or partially vaccinated tourists, may submit a negative RT-PCR test 72 hours before travel. Test must be done by the DOH accredited testing center. And i-check nila kung kayo ay may confirmed hotel bookings or reservation under DOH accredited. And proof of identity with Philippine residency or passport for foreigners and OFWs. Then they will check also your round-trip flight and your travel details. For non-Aklanans passenger classification traveler, a screenshot of the OHDC confirmation page from dito po sa link na to, mag-register kayo under Aklan as a traveler. Proof of identification with Philippine residency, travel itinerary, proof of full vaccination, yan po, kahit isa po dito. Nabasa ko na po to sa kanina. So, for returning Aklanans, passenger returning Aklanans, screenshot nyo din po ang OHDC nyo. Ito po yung link. Mag-fill up po kayo dyan or magre-register. Then, the Philippine government issued ID na may address po dapat kayo sa Aklan, travel itinerary, and proof of vaccination. So, yung mga guests traveling with minors below 12 years old, below guys ha, kung kayo ay 12 up, ibig sabihin same requirements na. Below 12 years old must accomplish the certificate of undertaking with minors and that template can be downloaded here. So, guests passing through to other areas in Aklan will not be accepted in the Caticlan Airport and must pass through the Calibo Airport instead. So, lahat ng papasok ng Caticlan, dapat ang bound lang nun is on Caticlan. Walang pupuntahang ibang provinces. Kung gusto nyo pong ganun yung way nyo or may pupuntahan pala kayong ibang provinces at hindi dun yung last destination, better to get a ticket via Calibo. So, upon arrival, guests are required to take Caticlan Airport Authority accredited transfer to Boracay Island. These are requirements we have as of the date indicated. So, requirements may change from time to time without prior notice. Please continue checking with the local government unit of your destination for the latest updates. And now, requirements for Butuan. So, for guests bound for the city of Butuan, approved travel coordination permit for Butuan City from ESPAS and prepare to upload a valid government-issued ID and any of the following documents. Present the full vaccination card, negative RT-PCR or saliva test result conducted within 7 days prior to travel date, negative antigen test result conducted within 7 days prior to travel date. So, all arriving residents of Butuan are required to take an RT-PCR test on the 5th day after arrival date. The RT-PCR test for Butuan residents is free of charge. So, children who are 11 years old and below are not required to present a travel coordination permit from ESPAS, provided that the adult companion has an approved TPC. So, guests are advised to coordinate with Butuan City Disaster Risk. Ayun po yung number ng Butuan para po sa ESPAS nyo para sa approval. For guests naman bound for cities and municipalities outside the city of Butuan, kung hindi doon yung last destination nyo, so present your ESPAS and your full vaccination card. Any of the following, pwede po yung vaccination card, RT-PCR or antigen. Children who are 11 years old and below are not required to present a travel pass. To travel to Cagayan de Oro, all guests bound for Cagayan de Oro City, kung dun yung last destination nyo, ESPAS, of course, staysafe.ph and Higala app. Then, for the returning OFW only, yung quarantine certificate nila. So, leisure travel is not allowed in Cagayan de Oro. Guests bound for cities and municipalities outside Cagayan de Oro and within the province of Misamis Oriental and in Lanao del Norte or Lanao del Sur are only required to register in ESPAS and staysafe.ph only. So, tourists are allowed in the province of Misamis Oriental, but note that the municipalities within the province have different requirements. Please coordinate directly with the LGU. All arriving passengers must pass the symptom screening upon arrival. And now let's go to Calbayog. All bound for Calbayog are required to present the following documents upon check-in. Ito lang yung requirements nyo, vaccination card, pag kayo ay fully vaccinated. For unvaccinated, negative RT-PCR or partially vaccinated, same requirements sa unvaccinated. Negative RT-PCR 72 hours. If a negative RT-PCR test cannot be presented, magkakaroon kayo ng 14 days quarantine. And certificate of acceptance issued by the city government of Calbayog. And now let's go to Camiguin. For tourist registration and health declaration via Clean Camiguin, prepare to upload the following. Ito po yung i-upload nyo doon, proof of complete COVID-19 vaccination and proof of confirmed booking from an LGU. Confirmed reservation with an accommodation establishment in the province. For guests staying in private home, LGU clearance is required. Ask your host to process the clearance. Then, proof of full COVID-19 vaccination. It should be at least 14 days after receiving your final required dose. Only fully vaccinated tourists are allowed to enter the Camiguin. The negative RT-PCR test, valid 72 hours for guests coming from Luzon and 48 hours for guests coming from Visayas and Mindanao. So far, hindi ko na itatackle yung mga authorized person. Kung kayo naman ay local residents doon kayo nakatira, so mag-register kayo dito sa Clean Camiguin, then ipapasa nyo po ito. And prepare to upload the following documents and save a printed digital copy of the QR code upon completion. Proof of complete COVID-19, negative RT-PCR test result, valid ID with residence ID within the province of Camiguin. And acceptance letter from the LGU, proof of COVID-19 vaccination. It should be at least 14 days after receiving your final required dose, and only fully vaccinated LSI and returning residents are allowed to enter Camiguin. So, kung hindi kayo vaccinated, hindi nila kayo tatanggapin. And negative RT-PCR test result, valid for 72 hours for guests coming from Luzon, plus 48 hours for guests coming from Visayas and Mindanao. Ang higpit ng Camiguin. So, travel requirements to Cauayan. The city of Cauayan requires the travel documents to be accepted for flight. Negative RT-PCR or antigen, valid 48 hours from time of release of results. So, passenger locator form distributed at the airport na ito. Health declaration sa airport nyo din ito makukuha. And download and register for the Trace app. Yun yung requirement sa Cauayan. Okay, via Cebu Pacific, napupunta ng Cebu. For Mandaue, fully vaccinated guests, official vaccine card, yun po yung i-present kung hindi kayo vaccinated or unvaccinated, partially negative RT-PCR 72 hours and antigen 48 hours. For Cebu Province or fully vaccinated individuals, wala po kayong ipipresent. So, for unvaccinated, partially vaccinated individuals, medical certificate certifying that they do not exhibit symptoms of COVID-19 at the point of origin. Then the medical certificate should be issued within 24 hours before arrival in Cebu. Then for Cebu City, for fully vaccinated, valid ID and proof of identity with picture and signature. And official vaccination card with QR code. If a QR code is not available, present the official vaccination certificate issued by the local health officer of the LGU or the vaccination certificate issued by the Department of Health. For unvaccinated or partially vaccinated individual, negative RT-PCR test result 72 hours validity or di kaya you can take the antigen 48 hours or saliva 48 hours. So, for Lapu-Lapu, wala silang requirements. Aside from what's listed above, guests departing from General Santos and bound for Cebu must present the following travel documents upon entering the General Santos International Airport before departing for Cebu. Ito kasi yung requirements sa Gensan bago kayo mag-depart. So, kung kayo ay doon magdi-depart, fully vaccinated guests must present vaccination card. Kung kayo ay unvaccinated, RT-PCR 72 hours or saliva. So, travel requirements to Clark. Open na for tourists yung Clark and wala po silang travel requirements as of now. For guests flying to Clark, please make sure to bring a valid ID and any travel documents required by the local government unit. So, malalaman nyo yung requirements going to Clark through SPAS. Nandun din po yung contact ng local government unit. So, hindi nila nilagay dito yung Clark requirements via Cebu Pacific. For Coron naman, guests flying to Coron are required to secure an approved travel coordination permit. So, ang requirements nyo, pag papunta kayong Coron, doon nyo po makikita sa SPAS. So, doon kayo mag-upload. Once may SPAS kayo, okay na po yun. So, Municipality of Coron, kung kayo ay authorized person outside residence, negative RT-PCR, saliva or swab test, or antigen test result, the test must be taken within 72 hours before boarding for RT-PCR test, while within 24 hours boarding for antigen and saliva PCR test must be administered by Philippine Red Cross only. 72 hours validity din po yun. Then certificate of coordination and the valid ID. For tourists naman, negative RT-PCR swab or saliva or antigen test result processed by the DOH accredited institution with an official receipt. So, the test must be taken within 72 hours before boarding for RT-PCR, 24 hours for antigen, yun. And your vaccination card. Only fully vaccinated tourists lang po ang allowed in the Municipality of Coron. And you are fully vaccinated, considered fully vaccinated if he or she has completed the required number of doses and it's the 15th day since the last required dose. Confirmed hotel, resort, and tour dive bookings itinerary, round-trip tickets. Minors who are accompanied by fully vaccinated parents, legal guardians, elder siblings may also be allowed to enter the Municipality of Coron subject to compliance with documents of the LGU. So, Colion, hindi pala siya Colian, so wrong pronunciation tayo dun sa Philippine Airlines. Kulian ako ng Colian dun. It's a Colion pala. Ayan. Kung kayo ay tourist dun, COVID-19 vaccination card, certificate of coordination, and the valid ID. Pag kayo naman ay ROF, APOR, and LSI, so negative RT-PCR or saliva, or antigen. Pag kayo ay kukuha ng RT-PCR, 72 hours validity. For antigen, 24 hours. And saliva is 72 hours also. Certificate of coordination, register to staysafe.ph, and the valid ID. If you are a tourist naman, RT-PCR 72 hours, antigen 24 hours, and saliva also 72 hours. Pili lang kayo dyan sa tatlo. Then COVID-19 vaccination card, certificate of coordination, and staysafe.ph, and also confirm hotel resort booking. So let's go to Cotabato. For the province of Maguindanao, just present your vaccination card. An individual is considered to be fully vaccinated if he or she has completed required number of doses. Yung 14 days dapat natapos nyo. So, ika 15 day pa kayo pwede mag-travel. And the valid ID. If you are not vaccinated, negative RT-PCR test taken within 72 hours and the valid ID. For Cotabato City, for fully vaccinated, present your vaccination card, QR code, and CCTS. And also, they need your RT-PCR or saliva test result valid 72 hours. There is a mandatory 14 days quarantine upon assessment of authorized medical personnel. So, depende po kung may quarantine kayo doon, i-assist po kayo doon ng medical personnel pagdating sa Cotabato. So, meron po silang swab test. For unvaccinated, negative RT-PCR, swab, or saliva, valid 72 hours, CCTS, and 14 days quarantine also. Depende po sa medical personnel. I-assist po kayo. Transiting passenger, kung hindi po dun yung last destination nyo, are also required to submit yung mga requirements na yon. And requirements may change from time to time without prior notice. So, for Davao, all Davao guests are not required to present any travel documents upon check-in. Please check with the LG of your destination if there are specific requirements for entry. Wala silang requirements sa Davao, ID lang. For Dipolog, okay, for authorized person, outside residence, hindi na natin yan tackle. Kung kayo ay dadaan lang ng Dipolog, negative antigen 5 days prior to travel, ID, and coordination permit from ESPAS. And also, dun tayo sa local government ng Okay. For LSI, mga ganon. Maliban sa APOR, ito po yung mga requirements tulad ng mga local stranded individual. Pag kayo ay fully vaccinated, vaccination card, ID with picture, and travel order proof of indispensable transaction para po ito sa mga APOR. Declaration form provided in origin station, staysafe.ph, negative antigen, and approve ESPAS. If you are unvaccinated, negative RT-PCR or antigen 5 days prior to travel, guests who present a negative RT-PCR test result will only be required to quarantine 5 days upon arrival. Pero kung guest kayo na nag-antigen, 7 days po. Ayun, declaration, staysafe.ph, and the ESPAS. For Dumaguete, ayan. For guests who are fully vaccinated, original and photocopy of vaccination card, and original and photocopy of any government-issued ID. And also for guests who are not vaccinated, negative or non-reactive antigen test result valid 48 hours, government-issued ID, and photocopy of the negative non-reactive antigen test. So for transiting lang naman, dadaan lang po doon. Kung kayo ay fully vaccinated, present your vaccination card, antigen 48 hours, and approve ESPAS. If you are not vaccinated, negative antigen 72 hours, and approve ESPAS. Pag kayo ay transiting passenger lang. So, for Jensen, Okay, for fully vaccinated, vaccination card only, and for unvaccinated, negative RT-PCR 48 hours from the date of release. Then, yung mga guests na pupunta dito sa lugar na to or last destination nyo ay nandito, makikita nyo ang requirements sa S-Pass. So, mag-provide din kayo ng S-Pass. For guests bound for South Cotabato, the following municipalities are requiring arriving guests to secure an approved S-Pass for Coronadal, Pulumulok, Tupi, Tampakan, Banga, Tantangan, Norales, Surala, Lake Cebu, Tibuli, and Santo Niño. So, guidelines for guests leaving General Santos, pag kayo ay outbound passenger, hahanapan po kayo ng vaccination card or certificate. If you are unvaccinated na magta-travel, RT-PCR po 72 hours. Yun ang requirements nila. So, for travel requirements in Iloilo City, for fully vaccinated returning residents, including guests traveling with minors between 5 to 7 years old, approved travel coordination from S-Pass, vaccination card, valid government ID, and certificate of residency issued by the barangay where the individual resides. For fully vaccinated tourists and non-essential traveler, approved travel coordination permit from S-Pass, vaccination card, valid ID, certificate of residency issued by the barangay where the individual resides, and proof of confirmed booking with hotel or other accommodation. So, an individual is considered fully vaccinated. It has been at least 14 days after the second dose, and children who are 4 years old and below are not required to submit a TPC. For unvaccinated or partially approved travel coordination from S-Pass, negative RT-PCR test result, and valid ID. For Iloilo Province naman, if you are travel to Iloilo Province from LGU under Alert 4 and Alert 5 shall be prohibited. So, hindi makakapasok pag Alert 4 and 5. Dito tayo sa for returning residents and overseas Filipino workers, fully vaccinated dapat. If you are fully vaccinated, a COVID-19 vaccination certificate, approved travel coordination permit. Note that the lead time for processing is 24 hours upon submitting of request and all requirements, notice of coordination with destination, and negative RT-PCR swab saliva test result issued not earlier than 72 hours before travel to Iloilo, and or saliva, you can choose RT-PCR that must be issued by a Philippine Red Cross only. For unvaccinated, meron din silang swab test 72 hours or saliva 72 hours. Approved travel pass sa S-Pass and notice of coordination. So, mahigpit pa ang Iloilo. Then, for Antique Province, all guests, approved travel coordination sa S-Pass, negative RT-PCR test result at 3 days before travel, valid ID, notice of coordination, and acceptance travel order. For Guimaras naman, for fully vaccinated guests, vaccination card issued by a legitimate vaccinating establishment or certificate of quarantine and travel coordination permit from the S-Pass. For unvaccinated, negative RT-PCR test result showing that date of test is not more than 3 days and coordination permit from S-Pass. For Kalibo, for tourists po, please fill up the online health declaration card at least 24 hours. Ito po yung link. And proof of full vaccination, any of these. You can present the VaxCert, local issued vaccination card, World Health Organization International Certificate, vaccination card. And for unvaccinated naman or partially, mag-present po kayo ng RT-PCR swab or saliva test 72 hours validity and must be done by the DOH accredited testing center. Then confirm hotel bookings and proof of identity with Philippine residency of passport for foreigners and OFWs and your round-trip flight travel details. And with minors, going to Aklan with minors below 12 years old must accomplish the certificate of undertaking traveling with minors. The template can be downloaded here. Okay, let's go to Legazpi. For fully vaccinated, vaccination card and trace app. For unvaccinated, negative RT-PCR or antigen test result from any DOH accredited testing center. The test shall be remain valid for 48 hours from the time of the test. This is required even for children. Ayun, requirements din siya kahit sa mga bata ang trace app. All arriving passenger must report to their LGU upon arrival for symptom screening and profiling. Okay, going to Manila, starting February 1, the National Capital Region is placed under COVID-19 Level 2. So, intra-zonal and interzonal travel is allowed subject to entry rules and regulation. Ito po yung mga requirements. Additional guests departing from General Santos must present the following travel requirements upon entering the General Santos International Airport before departing for Cebu and Manila. Fully vaccinated dapat yung mga guests na magdi-depart sa Gensan. Kung hindi kayo vaccinated, show your RT-PCR or swab test 72 hours before departure. For Mandawi, the requirements, travel coordination permit from the Office of the Governor and vaccination card, then valid ID for local stranded individuals. Okay. For OFW naman, since hindi na po kasi magka-quarantine ngayon yung OFW, malamang meron po yung magda-direct na doon. So, ito po yung mga requirements nyo, travel coordination permit and BOQ quarantine certificate. Tourists and non-residents of the province of Marinduque are not allowed to enter the province. Hindi po kayo pwede doon kung hindi kayo taga doon, kung hindi po doon yung last destination. All arriving guests will be subject to health assessment upon arrival and may be denied entry or placed under quarantine if found to have symptoms. Okay, in Masbate, all bound for Masbate are required to present the S-Pass QR code valid for 15 days from approval to be accepted for flight. So, within 15 days nyo dapat gawin pag pupunta kayong Masbate yung S-Pass nyo. And note that lead time for S-Pass approval is 48 hours. Okay, tourists are not allowed in the province of Masbate. Then for Naga, all bound for Naga are required to present an approved travel coordination permit from S-Pass. And for fully vaccinated guests, present your vaccination card, ID with residential address. If you are not vaccinated, okay, negative RT-PCR 48 hours from the date of collection and valid ID. Then for children naman 11 years old, ID or birth certificate and guardian's vaccination card, i-upload po yun sa S-Pass. Meron pong S-Pass ang 11 years old. So, travel requirements going to SAMIS. Ito for fully vaccinated guests, vaccination card, and valid government-issued ID. An individual is considered a fully vaccinated kung natapos niya ang second dose niya in 14 days. So, kung kayo ay partially vaccinated lang, negative antigen 72 hours, and valid government-issued ID. So, asymptomatic children who are 6 years old and below are exempted from presenting a negative antigen test. So, provided that the parents or guardian present the child's proof of identity. So, kung kayo ay may anak na 7 up, same requirements na po sa adults. So, travel to Pagadian. Kung kayo ay on Zamboanga, province of Zamboanga del Sur, you must provide the negative RT-PCR or antigen test result 72 hours upon receipt of result. Yun po yung RT-PCR 72 hours, yung antigen 48 hours. So, yung minors 12 years old and below shall be allowed entry kahit walang antigen. Pero kung kayo ay transit lang, hindi na kayo required nito kung dadaan lang kayo doon. So, for Pagadian City naman, all guests bound for Pagadian City are required to present a valid government-issued ID na nakalagay po doon yung Pagadian address. All arriving passengers are required to undergo the rapid test with minimal fee of 600 pesos kung Pagadian City ang last destination nyo. Kasi hindi pa sila open for tourists. Traveling for Puerto Princesa. Ito po yung schedule ng Puerto Princesa. Hindi po kayo basta-basta makaka-flight doon. Kailangan Monday, 5J643, 160 seats will be allotted for returning residents of Puerto Princesa City. The rest of the seats will be allotted for a guest bound for the province of Palawan. Then, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, only guests bound for Palawan province will be accepted for flight. This only applies to Manila Puerto Princesa flight. There are no restrictions for Puerto Princesa to Manila flights. Para lang po yun sa Manila PPS. Okay? Palawan province for tourists, only El Nido and San Vicente direct flight only are accepting tourists. Tourists from areas under MSCQ and other restricted areas are not allowed to enter. So for fully vaccinated, vaccination card or vaccination certificate from VaxCert, negative antigen 48 hours, approved S-Pass, DOT, accredited hotel bookings, confirmation, and round-trip ticket. So minors traveling to El Nido with fully vaccinated parents or guardian are not required to submit a valid negative RT-PCR test result, provided that the accompanying adult can now show proof of complete vaccination. Kung unvaccinated, negative RT-PCR 48 hours prior to arrival in Palawan and DOT accredited hotel and round-trip ticket. For returning residents naman and returning overseas Filipino, fully vaccinated, negative RT-PCR, negative antigen 24 hours before check-in, approved S-Pass, vaccination card, valid ID, no quarantine needed unless required by the municipality. Kung kayo ay unvaccinated, negative RT-PCR 72 hours. This is also required for minors who are at least 12 years old and approved S-Pass, valid ID, and may quarantine po 7 days. For unvaccinated, partially vaccinated minors who are 11 years old and below must present a negative antigen test taken 24 hours before the flight. For residents of El Nido, pag fully vaccinated, negative antigen 48 hours, S-Pass, vaccination card, valid ID, EOC coordination, and home quarantine for 7 days. Okay, for unvaccinated, negative RT-PCR 48 hours, approved S-Pass, vaccination card, valid ID with proof of residence, EOC coordination, and 7 days quarantine. Ito kasi for upper na ito, for authorized person outside residence. So for Puerto Princesa City, if you are fully vaccinated tourist, negative antigen test result valid 1 day, and tourist voucher issued by the City of Tourism Office, vaccination card, guest name must be included in the master list of the City Tourism Office, and travel must be pre-arranged and may only stay in the city for a maximum of 4 days and 3 nights. For local stranded individual, returning residents, and indispensable travelers, fully vaccinated, vaccination card, negative antigen within 24 hours. This is required kahit sa infant man and children at 12 years old and below. Approved travel coordination or S-Pass. This is not yung S-Pass hindi siya required pag going to Palawan, who are 17 years old and below. So proof of residency, any valid ID with Puerto Princesa City address or barangay certification, and 7 days home quarantine. If you are unvaccinated, negative RT-PCR test result within 2 days before departure. Approved travel coordination permit in S-Pass. This is not required for guests who are 17 years old and below. Proof of residency, 7 days quarantine at an LGU designated hotel. Children below 12 years old must submit a negative antigen test 24 hours before travel, and travel requirements must be emailed dito sa link na to yung imtcovid.reqppc@gmail.com. Yun po yung mga requirements nyo. So, going to Rojas. Okay, the requirements is negative RT-PCR test result issued by the DOH accredited laboratory 72 hours before time of travel, and SPAS for your travel coordination permit and health declaration na makukuha po ito upon arrival. Okay. Travel to San Jose for fully vaccinated COVID-19 domestic vaccination card, valid ID with photo and signature, and approved SPAS. For unvaccinated, negative RT-PCR or saliva 72 hours, valid ID and photo with signature, and approved SPAS. So guests traveling with minors aged 17 and below and or senior citizens regardless of vaccination status will only be allowed to do so if travel is essential. Ipoprovide nyo lang po dun sa mga bata na 17 below, birth certificate of the minor, and barangay certificate that stated the minor has no other guardian to be left with. Okay. For guests traveling due to medical concern, medical appointment record from the hospital, if the guest is traveling with a minor who will be authorized companion, a barangay certificate is required to state that the minor is the authorized companion. So going to Siargao, for tourists invited by the local residents of Surigao del Norte, negative COVID-19 saliva test result or RT-PCR 48 hours validity. So for fully vaccinated individual, may present their COVID-19 vaccination card duly issued by the legitimate vaccinating establishment para hindi na po kayo mag-RT-PCR. Then your valid ID, travel certificate issued by the mayor of the city or municipality within the province of Surigao del Norte. So for tourists naman na hindi siya invited ng local residents, nag-walk-in lang siya, mag-provide po siya ng negative saliva test result galing sa Red Cross or negative RT-PCR 48 hours validity. Pero kung kayo ay fully vaccinated, just present your vaccination card and valid ID, then confirm booking for at least 2 nights with a DOT accredited accommodation. Then for residents of Surigao del Norte, negative and kung kayo ay vaccinated, vaccination card. If not naman, saliva and RT-PCR 48 hours. Then children aged 17 years old and below are exempted. Valid ID or any proof of residency in Surigao del Norte. Yun po yung ipipresent nyo. So, children who are 17 years old and below are exempted from presenting a negative RT-PCR test result and SPAS. An individual is considered fully vaccinated if it has been done at least 2 weeks since the last required dose. So, travel to Surigao. Okay, just provide SPAS. Kukuha po kayo ng coordination permit doon. Then, for tourists invited by a local resident, same lang po doon kanina sa Surigao. Same lang po sila ng process and requirements. So, for Tablas, kasi may biyahe po ang Cebu Pacific going to Tablas for fully vaccinated, notice of coordination, vaccination card, approve SPAS, and negative RT-PCR swab or saliva test result conducted 72 hours with result issued within 24 hours from the date of travel. This is only required for guests coming from high risk. Then 5 days self-monitoring under the supervision of birth upon arrival. So for unvaccinated, notice of coordination, approve SPAS, and negative RT-PCR also or saliva 72 hours with result issued within 24 hours from the date of travel and 7 days quarantine. So Tacloban, vaccination card lang po. Kung kayo ay Cebu Pacific, for unvaccinated, mag-RT-PCR pa po kayo ng 72 hours or antigen 24 hours before arrival. Then in Tawi-Tawi, Okay, for guests flying to Tawi-Tawi, please present a negative RT-PCR swab or saliva test result from any DOH accredited testing facility. The test will remain valid for 5 days and present your valid ID. And for Tugigaraw, for fully vaccinated, vaccination card approved SPAS and the Trace app. So, an individual is considered, alam nyo na kung paano masasabing fully vaccinated pag natapos ang 14 days. For unvaccinated, negative antigen or swab test result conducted within 72 hours. And vaccination card, SPAS, and Trace app. Okay, let's go to VERAC. For local stranded individual, approve coordination from SPAS, proof of full vaccination, yung vaccination card, negative RT-PCR test result, valid 48 hours kung hindi po kayo vaccinated or partially. Pero kung kayo ay vaccinated na, vaccination card lang and SPAS. Then, going to Zamboanga, the last destination via Cebu Pacific. Okay, valid ID, negative RT-PCR swab or saliva or rapid test result conducted by DOH accredited facilities with the date of the test shown on the test. Saliva RT-PCR must be conducted by the Philippine Red Cross only or PAD Lab only. So, please take note of the test validity. Kung RT-PCR, 122 hours from the date of test and the antigen 24 hours from the date of test. Yan po ang validity dapat. Then approve SPAS. Registration for Zamboanga City. Application for SPAS must be done 2 days prior to travel. Note that SPAS must specifically state Zamboanga City. Kailangan naka-address po doon. Random antigen testing will be done upon arrival. So, merong iti-test doon. So, randomly lang. These requirements apply to all arriving passengers regardless of age or vaccination status. Kahit vaccinated or not, kung kayo ay nagkataon na iti-test sa araw na yun, iti-test po nila kayo kahit vaccinated pa po kayo. So, yan lang po ang mga requirements under Cebu Pacific. Then, our next vlog is the Airasia and to go.
I'm inviting you guys to like this page, Wonderfly Travel Agency and Agent Lenny. Kung gusto nyo pong magpabook ng flight nyo, message nyo lang po yung Wonderfly Travel Agency. And then kung may question po kayo sa vlog na to, message nyo po yung Agent Lenny. If you want more travel update, please like this video and share para marami tayong matulungan. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you will be updated on my next video. Goodbye everyone. Thank you for watching.